and welcome to the final part of Flory Fest 2023. The mammoth section is almost over. Here we are with you live, 2 o'clock on the 24th of September with our very special guest, Pranjit, senior designer, am I correct? From Airfix is with us this afternoon. Yeah. We've got the motley crew all down below as well. Just get it out of the room before we start. We have got a little bit of an audio crackle coming through, which seems to have stopped weirdly. So don't move, Peramjit. If you just freeze just like that, it'll be fine. But it's something on his end and it's just crackling. But so if we have got it, apologies. There's not a lot we can do about it. All right, it's one of those gremlins in the system. So, but yes, lovely to have all you here. Pranjit's going to do a presentation with us very, very shortly. And he's going to be talking through what he's up to. We've got some questions lined up for him as well. So, and if we've got any time at the end of it, obviously you guys can shout out in the chat rooms and we'll go through those as well. Just to start with, obviously the winners of the Money Can't Buy prize, which is a set of Flory Sanders available, was to... we've got Ross 2471 and Jeff Stainland. Is that Stainland? And so congratulations, you guys. If you can message me over, use the contact me on the florymodels.org. It's probably the best and safest way as well. Give us your addresses and I'll get those out to you at some point this week. All right, so they'll be winging their way to you. So congratulations to you guys. And again, I've got then a mystery prizes, which I don't even know what they are yet, but I'll have a good look around the studio and find some stuff because I've run out. And I don't want to say T-shirts and that because we might have sold out of them. So, but I will promise you it'll be well worth it. So again, all you got to do, like and subscribe and all the usual bits and pieces and just chat in the chat rooms or comment down below, things like that. And I'll pick 2 people at random, one from the Flory Models membership side and obviously one for the YouTube side as well. So we can look at those ones. So yes, good job. First of all, the important news, what did we have for lunch?
Cold pizza for me.
Cold pizza, right? Any rise on cold pizza?
I had a cheese and onion sandwich.
Very nice, very nice.
Bacon sandwich.
Trust John goes for the meaty option. Right, very nice. Nathan?
Cheese on toast to keep the cheese vibe going.
Yeah, I must admit, I went with the cheese because I had a cheese sandwich for lunch. And Pramjit?
I had cheese and tomato grilled.
Oh, nice. Very posh. Very nice. Anyway, right, so without further ado, don't forget we've got various things going on. Obviously, we've still got the 25% sale. Massive, huge thank you to everybody who's bought off of us over the course of the weekend. We're well into the hundreds of orders that have come through now, so it's going to take us a few days to process all of these. But it's 25% off and some as well with the merch and bits and pieces as well on all Flory Models stuff. So just pop along to florymodels.org, go to the sales, the store page just down in here, and you can see that one. We've also had a plethora of new subscribers who've joined the Flory family. If you want to join it, pop over to membership, have a look down in there, and you'll see. If you're in the EU, you do have to use Patreon, but pretty much anywhere else in the world, your easiest and quickest way is to just send me an email and I'll send you a link through. But again, there you go, £4 plus VAT, simple as that. And then obviously it's just a rolling thing every month and you can cancel at any time. Over on the PM store, so obviously this is pmmodelsuk.com. We've got various new specials that have gone up. Congratulations to everybody who's got himself a bargain over the course of the weekend.
Refresh that page, please, Phil.
Sorry, what, have you changed it again? Oh look, it's all moved. Right, okay, so talk about lastminute.com. So anyway, we've still got one of the Saturn 5s available. This does come with the free mug. So that very much sought after limited edition PM Models mug as well. So if you do fancy something long and pointy, there's one of those. Funnily enough, we've got something that Pranjit's designed. So if you've got any complaints about this kit, he's here to talk about it. We've got down in here the Buccaneer in 1/48 scale. Beautiful kit as well. We've also got the Valiant, so V Former Force there as well. We've also got the 24 scale Spitfire as well. Massive discounts on these, as you can see right the way through. And the classic Javelin as well. It's nice to see that one back again. To be honest, that was my demo piece at Telford every year doing the washes. Yeah. So I've got the kit apart from the wings because I've worn them out. Right, we've also got the Revell Boba Fett not Slave one as well because it's not politically correct anymore to do that. And talking of which, we've also got the SU-25 by Zvezda. And a Hercules as well. And last up, we've got the fantastic Italeri Jaguar, which is a beautiful little kit. Did a video build of that one last year. And again, the awesome Tacom Apache. This is the Mark 1, the British version as well. So it's the Westlands Apache on that one. So again, some great prices and discounts, as you can see, right the way through those. Go off and grab yourself a bargain. And don't forget, you still can get 15% off everything else, including, because obviously they're here, Airfix. So we've got all your Airfix kits. All of these ones are 15% off as well. Just pop along to the store. You can grab yourself a little bit of a bargain. The sale will end at 1 minute to midnight tonight. So this is your last opportunity to grab any of these ones. And don't ask about why it's 1 minute too. Did we sell the last pair of these? Or are they still here? I'm going in to see. They've sold out. So you can't...
All gone.
You can't have any god hands, so we'll scrap that. But if you do want anything else, we've got all your tools, all your sundries, and all your bits and pieces down below as well. So if you want to grab anything, mind you, look, we're out of snips bloody everywhere here.
Say for whatever's left.
For whatever you've not decimated us from, you can have. All right, so again, we've got all your tools, we've got all your glues, all your paints, your kits, you name it, everything's down in there. So please pop along to pmmodelsuk.com, or obviously down below in the old show notes and things, you'll find the addresses for all of these things. They are all down there, just like that.
What you need to do, Phil, is contact Airfix and say that your set of wings missing out of a Vulcan.
Out of a javelin. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll just say I forgot a mismold, because then, you know, they're very good at getting spare parts. But I've got the entire kit is brand new, apart from I took the top half wings and the bottoms, and I've used them for demoing. The rest of the kit's absolutely fine. So, but yes, never mind. All good. Anyway, Pranjit, how are you doing? We haven't seen you for 2 years, it turns out. I was sure you was on last year, but we clearly missed you.
Yeah, no, it was 2 years ago at Flory Fest. That was your the debut year of Flory Fest.
It was. And then you did a bit of a special with us for the Buccaneer and bits and pieces as well. Indeedy. And you've been working on some fantastic projects. So for people who don't know, can you do your back catalogue of all the kits you've designed for Airfix? Can you remember them all? This is the question.
No, I remember. To be honest, I was actually going to say to Nathan, put that as a question for the...
for the questions.
For the quiz last night.
For the quiz, yes.
Yeah. I think I know.
So, done the Tiger one. That was my first one. Then the which is both the classic one and the starter set, but it's done as one project. The Hawk starter set was my next one. The Spitfire starter set was the one after that, followed by the Spitfire Classic. Then was the Mosquito. Then was the Buccaneer, a 48th scale Buccaneer. Then was 72nd scale F-35, which is the starter set. And then after that was the 48th scale Gannet. So we'll be talking mainly about the Gannet and then a bit of the F-35. And then if anyone's got any questions about anything else, then yeah, feel free. But
what was after the Gannet?
Yeah, that's the thing. We want to know what you're working on now.
You were hoping for a slip there, weren't you?
Before he came on, you just know he's spending 10 minutes taking everything out of his studio there and chucking them literally in the other room. He's probably got all the test shots and all the bits, and they just cleaned it all out. Because we know what you lot are like at home. You'll be scrutinising everything that's in the background. It's like, I've only got to have a new paintbrush in my pot, and everyone's saying, whose is that? You know, it's that bad. So yes, he's probably been around there, scanned it all and everything else. So, or not like some places you see them, they've got blankets over stuff. So you know full well there's something underneath it. So you should have done a plain shape something in 24th scale, something quite thing, and just hidden it under things.
There might be a teaser next to a spray booth in 48th.
Yes. Yeah, this is it. So anyway.
B-17.
Yeah, 48 scale B-17, it's fine.
B-17, yeah.
It's just lower. It's just out of shot.
That's the HKM one, is it?
Yeah, 48 scale one.
Nice.
So
Very
we're on
nice
a bit
indeed.
of a 48 scale bomber thing. So yeah, we got the B-25 and then we got the Trumpeter B-24 to 42 as well. 48 scale.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very cool. Right, okay. So, should we go straight into your presentation? Because we say we've got lots of bits and pieces. So, if you just give me a minute, I'll bring up the slideshow. If I can remember how to do all of this. It's been a while. Right, okay. So, we just pop in here and then I've got to do something like... which one have I got to turn off? That one. There we go. There it is. We are in. Cool. Good job. Right, okay. So, without further ado, you just say next slide, please, and I'll be right there. All right, so take it away, please, Pranjit. Yay!
I might say next slide, or I might say, can you put the camera back on me and then I'll show bits and pieces.
Yes, I can do that, I think. Hold on, let me just check that's working. Yeah, no, I've got you. Look, you're there. It's fine. Go for it.
All right. Next slide.
Oh, right, okay. Crikey. Right. Come on, there we go. We're in.
All right, so is it coming on? Okay. Yeah, that's all good. It's just my screen. It looks a bit cut out, but it's fine.
No, we're
So-
all good this end.
So got the project brief for this F-35. Obviously, it was going to be a starter set, so we weren't aiming for a more complicated one. There's loads of other companies, as I'll be talking about in the next slide, that do F-35. So we wanted to go for one that's very simple for the beginners, even for like example, like Nathan's doing it now as well. They're good mojo builders, and I think this one is probably one of my best ones to date, because it just fits together really nicely. If you build the one, my favorite one is the one on the left, the in-flight one, where everything's all closed up, because it's got that really nice look. I mean, if you look at it, it looks a lot better than an F-14 Tomcat.
Bonus
No
point.
comment. No comment.
Never.
I just had to. I've been planning that whole for about a week now.
I always liked you, Peramjit.
I'm going rapidly off of him. It's fine.
But I think I got that idea from knowing like how airports have like those gate guardians of aircraft, and they're like banking at different angles. No, when you go like Heathrow Airport, they sometimes change the airliners.
Yes.
That's the way I sort of got that idea in terms of it like at that angle and stuff like that. So I was like 100% want to do that. But we only do. This is the first time we've done 2 stands. So you get those 2 little stems. So you do the one that Nathan's done, which is like the beast mode, not beast mode, hover mode, and then you got the next one, which is like in-flight mode. So you use the same base, but you just use different stands, and obviously that keeps tooling and cost right down as well. So, and this is, I think this is our biggest and most complicated starter set that we've done so far in terms of the new style. So, because if you notice, it's in like a slightly bigger box compared to like the Hawk or the Tiger tank or the Spitfire or something like that, all the new cars that have been coming out recently as well. It's a slightly bigger one because it's got more parts, and obviously the F-35 is just a big aircraft, and it should sell pretty well because one thing is that when you go to air shows and stuff like that and you see one flying around, so like Riyadh, Bournemouth, people see it flying around and they're like, oh, where can I buy an F-35? And it's like, oh, it's a really good entry point because people who go to model air shows aren't really modelers. Majority of them aren't, so it's a good way to get these people into the hobby.
Definitely.
Yeah. I also say if the F-35 doesn't fancy anyone, if it's the shape, then that's a different thing. But if it's a color scheme, then you can do your own color scheme. I think I want to do my own one in like a blue aggressor scheme.
Yeah.
Or you can just do your own scheme, like just make it up. That's always a good like. It goes back to that thing that we always say: it's your model, do what you want with it. You don't have to do the color schemes. If a grey doesn't really take your fancy, then just make your own color scheme, like a Spitfire camo or something like that. Just do whatever you want.
No, there is actually in the US the Aggressor Squadron with them now, and they're in Splinter. They look very cool.
Okay.
They're in the
Alright,
Splinter
nice.
camo scheme.
Yeah, so that's my plan on doing it. These 2 that you see here. I'll build these ones, but I do plan on building like a Splinter one. I think the one on the left you can build in about half an hour, and then paint that after. Literally, it's super quick. If you do everything all closed up, it goes together really, really quickly, and it's a good mojo builder.
That's true.
So,
It was quite a fun build, bit nice and straightforward.
yeah, good. I'm glad you like it. It's one of my proudest ones. I'm quite happy with the way it came out because I spent so long thinking about it before I even started designing it. That's probably the one time where I do spend quite a lot of time beforehand thinking about it, but this is one I really spend a lot of time on. So if you go over to the next slide.
I can imagine because of the complexity of the aircraft. I know everyone says it's boring and flat and everything. It's not. That's a really complex curves and shapes on it. From a design point of view, it must be a bit of a nightmare. Trying to, as you say, get all of those nice smooth things and then into tooling like that.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. 100%. It's actually, people think it's quite simple, but it's actually fairly complicated.
No, I would say it's very complicated. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So these are the 3 manufacturers who probably do F-35Bs in 1/72, and all 3 of them I looked at. I had the kits in front of me, went to tore them apart, building it, seeing what I like, seeing what's done well, what can I apply to my own design. And I know you built the F-35, the Hasegawa one.
Yes.
And
yeah.
A key thing was the ram tape. It's like, how are we going to do that? And I was like, 100% I didn't want to do raised. So I've done it as power lines. And that took a lot longer, but I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, no, I think definitely. I'm grabbing mine as well. So yeah, I think the thing is, there's always got that argument about the ram tape and all the rest of it now. But technically, now that the colour is matched to the actual airframe colour as well, it's not one of those more standout areas, and I think it's one of those things that people can sort of move on from now. But at the time, I know everyone was a bit over the top with it all.
Even the colour thing. Colour thing aside, it's always this little step that people always say, oh, it doesn't look in scale, it doesn't look right. You're never going to get it in scale. Because if you think about it, if you look at a piece of tape on the actual real aircraft, get the thickness of that and divide it by 72 or 48 scale, it's going to be like ridiculously thin. That's never going to come out. So when people say, oh, it doesn't look in scale or it doesn't look right, you're never going to get it in scale. It's just one of those things.
Also, I think people, what they don't appreciate is the whole point of this ram tape, it's not just sealing down a gap, it wraps around the edge of the gap. So the idea being is that the radar, when it actually bounces off the aircraft, it gets absorbed into the said tape, so it's not reflecting anything back. And I think that's what people don't sort of appreciate. I think they think it's covering gaps. It's not so much there to cover gaps, because obviously they need to open for things like fuel doors and access panels and things like that. So it's actually wrapped around the edges of them. So when the radar bounces in and around these areas, it just gets absorbed. So it's not reflecting the radar energy back to its source. So naturally, it's always going to be a little bit thicker as well. But I think a lot of people got hung up with the idea it's supposed to be almost like, Formula One cars when they're sealing up the gaps. Some of it is, but some of them aren't. So that's why they look a little bit lumpy bumpy in some areas and smooth in others. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion with this came about in the early days.
But it was just to basically, if you want a more complicated one, go for these ones. Like our one isn't a complicated one. It's I know some people got a bit confused, perhaps when it first came out, saying it hasn't got all the detail. But it's a starter set, so everything's all really simplified, and it's literally just to give you a basic entry. It's mainly for beginners and stuff like that. That's what the starter sets are aimed for. But when I was building all these kits, I thought what's done well, what hasn't, and this sort of goes back to, and I'm sure people will ask questions later as well. Is that, do you look at other people's kits? And this is a classic example of yes, I do. Other designers as well, but because the way my brain works, I need to look at everyone's in the competition.
Yeah.
I need to look at everyone's and see what everyone else does, just because there are little things in there, and it's not about copying and stuff like that or trying to do something different. If someone's done something well, there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to make it different for the sake of making it different. If that works well, then apply it to your design. I don't see what's the point of trying to do something different for the sake of doing something different. So yeah, that was the thing with that.
So can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was at RIAT, I remember Dale running out the tent to see the F-35.
Is this one this year or last year?
Like 2 years ago, it was boiling up. Did he run back in and said, we're doing an F-35 after seeing it hover? What was
no,
how did it end up on the list?
I think it was already designed at that point. I think. So yeah.
I think someone saw it hovering and thought, we need to do that.
But the thing is, that's a classic example. Going back to it, I mean, you see people see it flying around and be like, and then they go and see one, and you can buy one, and people buy it. That's
true.
Yeah.
Hey, we were all guilty of that when we saw the Ukrainian flankers a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Seeing an F-35 doing what it does is just amazing. Now I've got one on my desk.
It's so loud when it hovers. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculously loud. I never heard a Harrier before. I've never heard a Harrier hover around and twirl around the runway, but yeah, F-35 is pretty cool.
I always think with these ones doing the short takeoff and landings and things like that, the funny thing is that normal jets, when they're coming into land, they're almost at idle, because they're just gliding in. Difference with Harrier and these things, are almost at full power. So it's almost completely reversed. So taking off and landing, they're almost at full power, all the time. So they're incredibly noisy. And that's what I used to love about the old Harrier in the early days, sitting outside of Yolverton runway 27 and having the FA2s hovering above you as they're coming in and practicing the landing. Yeah, there's something very cool about that.
That's cool. Next slide. So one challenge I had was obviously going back onto the thing, trying to make it as simple as possible. If you look at other manufacturers, there's some really thick parts on the F-35. So like the flaps and the tailplanes, I believe it is, the ones at the back.
Yep.
They can get quite thick in areas. So I was like, how do I try and figure this out? And one thing I'm quite happy with is that I managed to put the tailplanes onto the top fuselage, which I was quite happy with. And then you got the hover fan as well, that's molded on. Normally that's a separate part. You got, as Nathan was saying as well, you got the instrument panel molded on. It's just trying to make it as simple as possible. I mean, like a lot of people, if you've got three parts, I think it's the bottom fuselage, you've got the front bottom fuselage, and then you've got the top fuselage. You put those things together and then you more or less got an F-35.
Yeah.
Really nice. And again, like we were saying, it's not full of switches and detail like old classic aircraft. It's all very much limited with giant touchscreen TVs now. So
exactly.
So yeah,
but yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
It was a bit of a design challenge to try and get that all sorted out because areas get quite thick. So trying to work out what the split lines are going to be just so it doesn't sink was a bit of a challenge, I'm not going to lie. But it's something I thought about quite early on. And a lot of the things that you think of quite early on, they don't apply when you start getting your teeth into it and start designing it. But luckily, things worked out, and I am quite happy with this one, and it worked out pretty well. I mean, like that whole the top fuselage thing, you think about it, I think it's like the whole drive shaft, that's normally a separate part. Then you've got the fan, then you've got the tailplanes, those are all separate parts, but I managed to combine it into one, and it doesn't compromise the kit too much, if that makes sense. It doesn't take away from the shape or anything like that.
Very nice.
Cool. Next slide, please. So if you guys know, we roughly look into the instruction. The designers are quite heavily involved in the instructions. We don't design the instructions, but we come up with the instruction method, as in like the sequence, sorry. And we chat with Richard, who does our instructions. If you guys may have seen him on like some social media stuff, he's the one who does the instructions. So what we do like a PowerPoint presentation, a really rough one. And in my head, when I was designing this as well, because it's going to have two stands and it's going to be in two modes. So you're going to have everything folded up and then everything out in hover mode. Because there's so many bits and pieces that are sticking out, I wanted to get to a point where you build it up and then you build it up and it's the same for both versions, and then you get to a point where you split off the instructions basically. If you see the instructions, then you'll understand. I mean, I think Nathan will kind of testament to that, is that you start off at the beginning, you put all your parts together that are common for both versions, and then when it starts getting different, that's when the instructions sort of split off. So if you're not doing, so say if you want to do in-flight version and not hover mode, you follow the instructions from a certain point and follow it from there. And it just makes it simple for beginners as well, because imagine if this is your first, imagine you've never built a model kit and you come into it and instructions can be quite daunting, let alone the kit. So we're just trying to make it as simple as possible at that. So yeah, I mean, like a lot of people forget that instructions are a very key part of the modeling experience. If you don't have good instructions, then it takes away from your experience and your enjoyment. And this is an enjoyable hobby.
Definitely. I think, again, when we're trying to, I suppose, with this kit as well, is get the youngsters in and also new people coming back into the hobby. The last thing you want to be doing is putting it into a stage where things are complicated. You've got to keep it simple. You've got to keep it moving, the build moving along and things like that. So any way that's sort of more understandable and straightforward to sort of follow is a bonus for everyone.
Exactly. I mean, like I was saying before, this is our most complicated starter set that we've done so far. So it had to be a bit more. It had to be complicated, but obviously not over complicated that it just puts people off, just because the amount of like optional parts and stuff like that. what's going on. So yeah,
Nice.
cool. Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
Cool,
Done that
so
one.
that's-
There we go. Hold on. Which one was we on? Sorry, I've lost the thing. Have we done that one? That one. Sorry, I'm doing it somewhat different order here. There we go. So that's the one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that's that on F-35. If anyone's got any questions or something like that, if they want to ask or we'll ask questions later, then feel free.
Oh, I think what we do, if we do questions at the end,
Yeah, cool.
because that way we can sort of keep it all in one place. Then, yeah.
Cool. So, talking about the Gannet now, one thing that I wanted to do straight away is that obviously we were going to do a folded and unfolded version for the Gannet. One thing I really didn't want to do was use the same parts for both folded and unfolded. So we've got different. I've done different wings for folded and unfolded. So then that way, you're not trying to. If you're doing so, let's just say we only give you the unfolded parts, and then you've got to join it together to make a folded wing. You're trying to get the gaps right and get it all together. That's just a complete nightmare. So you've got two separate wings for each version, each option. So, yeah.
Sometimes you get the opposite way where you have to cut them, don't you, yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was, that as well. It was just like, no, 100% didn't want to do that. It adds a lot of money to the tooling and overall cost. But I was like, I can't do it like this. Like me as thinking like this as a modeler, I was like, nah, I can't do this. Like we've got to do it as two options. So, Phil, if you could just flip it over to me.
Yep.
On camera.
Mm-hmm.
So that's wings unfolded or wings out. So whole frame for that, and then you've got wings folded.
Got you.
Cool.
There's parts missing and stuff like that because this is an old test shot one. So yeah, you get two of these for left and right. So yeah.
I take it with this one, the common parts like ailerons and that, there only be one of, yeah?
Say that again.
So ailerons and common parts like that,
Yes.
you're only going to get one of. So it's not like you could pull the wings off, and what I'm getting at is then have it folded up or out.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
You're thinking about that now. You think I should have done that, and then we
No,
could have
to be
actually
honest,
just slid the wings off and done it both versions.
Do you know what it was? It was like you can't do it because you've got to do two separate wheel wells, all the parts for that,
Yeah.
and the landing
Yeah.
gear and stuff like that. So
Fair enough.
if the wing fold was because everything's joined together, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
the whole wing is one piece. If I'd done it separately from a certain point, I'll show you. I'll go back to the models in a bit. Then it would have. So you're probably thinking about your Sky Raider, isn't it? Your Trumpeter
Yeah.
37 one.
Yeah.
Nah, because the Gannet is such a complicated one, and that was the whole point of me wanting to do two separate wings parts. Because it's
Yeah,
so complicated, you're going to compromise both versions to try and accommodate that. Going back onto, because I watched Jamie Hago's channel as well, YouTube channel, and one thing he said, he was so happy that that they've provided two separate parts or two different separate parts for each version, and I was just like, yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping people's reaction will be, is that they will be happy, because just like Andy was saying, otherwise you don't want to be cutting away parts to do a wing fold. It's just like
No, and that's it. You want to keep it as simple as possible. The bit where you start got to do surgery on a kit and you make a mess, it's very difficult to come back from it, as we know. But no, get it totally.
cool. If you go back onto the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah.
Cool. Next slide, please. All right. So I remember you mentioned this on a show a few weeks ago. You said, "Oh, I wonder if he's put little tubs in there for nose weight." And yes, I have.
There you go, because we were saying it's going to need it.
Yeah. And to be honest, there's a bit of a story to this. So if you see there's 3 tubs in there. You only used 2 of them. Well, you did only use 2 of them. I put if you see there's a little tub in between the wing spars.
Yeah.
That was just as like an emergency, just in case if there wasn't enough nose weight. But because that little tub is behind the wheels, it doesn't really help that much. But I put it in there anyway, just in case, because it was empty space.
Right.
Anyway. But when I got my first test shots, I was like, okay, built it all up, put the nose weight in and everything. built the entire model, and then bang, tail sitter. And I must have put about 50 grams, like literally put so much weight in that. And I was like, okay. Then I built it again, thinking, oh, let me just add a little bit more, see what I can add. Still a tail sitter. So then at this point, I'm thinking, crap, what do I do? Like, there's no more space to put more nose weight, no more nose weight. So I was like, okay, got to think of something. How do I do this? So that front one, that front nose weight tub that you see, if you so in the kit now you don't use that. I designed it so you can put that in, but the front one you don't use anymore. So it's not in the instructions or anything. You don't use that one, and then what you do is put it here. Cool. If you flick it over to me.
Yep.
So something like that. So this is where that little tub would go in there.
Yeah.
But if you don't use it, you get a lot more space in there. And then what you've got to do, you've got to basically fill it in with nose weight in here, and then you put your front cowling on, and then that's enough. But if you go back onto the presentation, so yeah, you see it on the right hand side. I put a little snippet of the instructions. So you've got to be a bit careful not to go past this certain line, but you put about 50-55 grams of nose weight in there, and you should be all good. And when you do put it in there, you're like, it is super heavy, and then the finished model is really heavy. Yeah, it's just one of those ones where that's one of those things where you try and design in something, but you're never going to know until you have it in your hand in actual plastic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Again, I think it's just one of those things. You're trying to get, if you get the nose weight the furthest farther forward, against from the centre of gravity, isn't it? And then obviously you're not going to need as much weight in there. But so I take it this gap you've still got to leave is for the mechanics of the engine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Intruding back in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was just one of those ones where you're designing it, and then when you're obviously building the test shot, you're thinking, crap, there's still not enough nose weight. And then obviously you can't tell how heavy it is, but everyone who's picked it up, like in the office, goes, oh, this is really heavy. It's like, yeah, it's got to be that, because you need it to stop it being a tail sitter. Because if you look at the Gannet in real life, I think in real life, because the engines are so heavy in real life, that's what stops it from tipping over as a tail sitter.
Yeah.
So I think when they took the engines off for like maintenance for that, they need to prop it up on the rear, because those engines are so heavy. Yeah, quite interesting little thing when you start thinking about it. It's like, yeah.
And luckily, I suppose, because it's a naval aircraft, you've got nice beefy gear that will take the weight. Because obviously, a lot of modelers' fear is obviously because it's got light, dainty undercarriage. If you've got, as you say, 50, 60 grams of weight in it, plus the weight of the kit, that's a lot of weight on thin little undercarriage. But seeing as it's designed for naval aviation, it's got proper beefy undercarriage that will take the weight of all this stuff.
There's a future slide about the undercarriage as well, so that's a segue for that.
Yeah, see, good at this.
Yeah. So this was actually quite a interesting thing of how I wanted to design it. A lot of times we built kits and the wing to fuselage joint isn't that great because the wing just butts up to the surface of the fuselage. I think quite a lot of you guys have probably experienced that. Maybe not on recent kits, but you guys know what I mean, roughly.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is I wanted the wings to slightly offset inside the fuselage, so it sits in there by about a millimeters. It sort of steps in. So if you look at image 2, the one that says 2, you can I've done like a little section view, and you can see that there's a little step inside of it where the wing sort of goes into it, and then you get a better joint. You don't have no joints to clean up or anything like that. Or the reason why they normally do have gaps is because of draft and stuff like that, and the way it's molded and stuff like that. Normally it's not really got to do with the design, it's just how the tooling and everything's got to be. That's usually the case, but I was like, I 100% did not want to have this thing, but it means more complications in terms of I offset that surfacing, it means it starts clashing with the bomb bay. So if you look at image 2, you can sort of see the way I've had to, you can see how close and everything it is, like the way I've got to sort of have the bomb bay, it is already at a slant.
Yeah.
But the way the bomb bay had to do it in for plastic and stuff like that, it was a real challenge in terms of design. It took a while to try and figure that out. But I'm glad I did put that time and effort into it, because it means it's a better kit to go together.
Again, and so just for people who are trying to get what we're saying, this area here, technically where the wing root joined, this is a recess, which is stepped in. You can see, say, about a millimetre down in there. So you've still got the structural from the wing spars coming through, which will make your alignment right. Because some of the trouble with these going is, if they don't sit correctly into there, you can end up with one wing higher than the other. But because you've got the wing spar as well as that, not only is that going to be an incredibly strong joint, but your alignment should all be absolutely spot on as well. So yeah, definitely, I'm very much welcome to see that. We've seen that with other manufacturers as well, where it's literally just got that slight little recess into it. Because you're right, the amount of us that have to come in at some point with a bit of filler, bead of filler down this area, just down where obviously the wing joins the fuselage, because of, you say, limitations in tooling and things like that, and the actual injection moulding process, that obviously that negates that completely, which is again another very nice step.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a bit of a challenge, and it was especially challenging towards the rear of the trailing edge of the wing, because of obviously you've got that engine exhaust that sticks out, and then you've got that like funny shape that comes up. That was tricky to do. So yeah, that whole area was just took ages. But like I say, it was time well spent, and I'm glad it all worked, because obviously you're worried that you put so much time and effort into this, and you're like, oh, if it doesn't go together, because obviously you can't just spend an infinite amount of time on these designs. You can't just be like, oh, I'll take forever doing this, or so you've got to sort of push yourself to try and get these things done at a sensible time, because you've got an entire the rest of the plane to do, not just this one area. So yeah.
I like the way the exhaust comes out at the side of the chap at the back, but at least he's not going to go deaf in just one ear, because he's got them both sides, hasn't he? Deaf in both ears at the same time.
Does it keep him nice and warm with both each side of them, the rear observer? He's got something to keep his feet warm with them down there.
But if you actually think about it, look how long the engine's got to go, the engine ducting.
To get to that exhaust.
It goes majority
right
of
the way from the front, as you say, all the way from here, all the way to here. So yeah, it's keeping everything nice and toasty back there.
Yeah. So. Is it AEWs at the front, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously all that massive radar, and they probably run. This is probably not the best sort of thing way to design it or something like that.
Yeah. So, strange.
Very nice. Excellent.
Cool. Next slide, please. So this is quite an interesting one. So it always, I know Matt normally says it. Don't spend so much time designing wheel wells. No one's going to see. But it's just one of the, and to be honest, when I'm designing it, I'm like, should I put this much time and effort into it? But the Gannet undercarriage is there's so much that you can see, and it's all quite visible. So it was do I just make it as a one-piece thing, and then you don't get the majority of the detail? But then I kind of feel like, it's a 48 scale Gannet. No one's probably ever going to do a 48 scale Gannet. This is probably going to be the only thing that you're going to have in the next 20, 30 years. I can't imagine anyone else doing a 148 Gannet. So it's just trying. I can see Matt's nodding his head. He's like, nah.
No, it won't, will they? Let's be honest.
No, that's it.
So then, again, this was another design challenge as well. So if you see step 25, you can see I've basically done a little, I don't know how you would call it, an exterior structure. And then you have the parts that sort of slip onto it, and then you can get maximum amount of detail onto it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of those things where I was like, I am quite glad I did do that, because it also makes it easier for the undercarriage in terms of how I want to do the location and stuff like that. So it did pan out quite well. So yeah, if you do see, one thing I do have to say about this entire kit, like there is a lot of detail that's gone into it. Like there's loads of nice there's recessed rivets on it. There's raised rivets on there. The wheel well's got a lot of detail. Cockpit's got a lot of detail. And this is one kit where I think I put a ridiculous amount of detail on it, and I'm hoping people like it in terms of both the wing fold, but we'll talk about that in a bit anyway. Yeah.
Nice, very nice.
Once you see it in plastic, I'm sure you guys will like it. Yeah, once you see it in plastic, then I think people will be quite pleased. One thing I did do, so if you see step 28, this is something where it's like, do I do this? Do I not? So on step 28, this is the landing gear door, and it sort of goes into a slot. However, sometimes I did find that in test shots, sometimes they went together quite nicely, sometimes they didn't. And the reason is that sometimes it would almost be like a little bit of flash or something like that. But if you test fit it at this point here and just clean it up and make sure it goes together, it's a lot easier to do it. And after, when you put the two wings together, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's not calling out, oh, this is a fault in the kit or anything. It's just like, this is how I've done it. It's like a little modelling tip, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because limitations of the moulding and.
No, it's not even there's limitations of the moulding. Sometimes, because the thing is, you'll see what it is when you see the kit in real life, is that the landing gear door, it goes into two slots. And sometimes the slots would be like a bit, sometimes it just wouldn't go in. And I was like, sometimes, occasionally, it would just be like a little bit of flash. And it's just a lot easier to clean up at this point than it would be at a later point. And it's just like one of those modelling tips. If you're watching someone doing a video build of it, then they will give this tip. So it's just like, why didn't I just give this in the instructions? I mean, like, I built it like 10, 15 times now. Maybe 7 times it was fine, 7 times it wasn't. But it's a lot easier to fix at this point now. So,
but
yeah,
again, that's because I think it's great, because again, it just shows, I'm not being funny, you're a modeler first and technically an engineer second. So, and a designer second, because again, you've had the forethought to actually mention this in the instructions. And again, most people, it would probably be fine, but for the ones that haven't, later on down the line, they're going to be like cursing you, because I know what you mean, because you can just get a file in here now, but if you've got that in the wheel well, trying to clean that out, it's going to be a nightmare, you know, because you can't really see. But doing it before you even get near that stage, I think that's a fantastic little tip, you know. Great, that's, very smart. Good job.
Yeah, because at that point when you're doing it, you're thinking, people might say, Airfix or like putting a fault out or something like that. It's not really a fault. It's just like, this is something I found is quite easy to do right now. Just test it and then try it out later. I mean, like, I'm quite happy to do these sort of things in my designs, just because it just says, it just makes my main goal is to have an enjoyable experience building a model kit. So that's the thing with that. If I can apply that in the instructions, then I'm happy to.
No, definitely. No, we like it. We like it a lot. Cool.
Next slide, please. So yeah, some people have mentioned this. So what it basically is wing strengtheners just in between the wings, so it doesn't like sandwich together and you have a bit of strength. This is something I added after the SLA, because once I had the SLA, I was putting the wings together and it was empty space, and I was like, it's very easy to just squeeze the entire wings together. There's no like meat in there. Does that make sense? So. Yeah, that's all that is. It's just literally just to, and these parts are used for both the wing fold and wings out. So yeah, it's just to, that's just one of those things where you don't really think about design, but once you have it as a prototype, then you're building it and you're like, if I just add this, then it just makes it a lot better and stronger and stuff like that.
So do you build those and add those yourself, do you? They're not moulded in with the wing?
No, they're separate parts. They're two separate parts.
So again, I can imagine some of the confusion probably came about because it does look like it's some type of gun bay or something bay for it.
Yeah.
But technically, they're just strengtheners to give rigidity into the wing section, which
Exactly.
again is another nice. Instead of running formers, just put the box section in, which is stronger than formers would be, and easier and more for alignment. Because if you put formers in, you've got to make sure they're 90 degrees. Yet put a box section in is perfect, straightforward.
It's not even about the formers and stuff like that as well. To be honest, I would like to do that, but there's always a risk of having sink.
Yeah, that's why I asked. It's good that you build them yourself and put them in, because otherwise, if they're moulded, you just know you're going to get massive sink marks underneath, don't you?
Exactly. I mean, like they're literally just like these rectangular things. They're all molded in one piece, so you should just have to cut them off. You barely need to clean them up as well because it's something you don't really see. One thing that you learn is that when you build something like 10, 15 times, Phil can probably testify to this as well, building like 200 Hornets, is that you don't need to clean up every single part perfectly. There are parts where you can just like clean up very roughly and then put together because you only want to clean up the parts that you see or are going to interfere with something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's literally a classic example. You don't need to clean, just need to cut them off the sprue. Maybe just like a few spikes with the sanding stick, or just maybe cut really close with the side cutters, and then that's it, job done.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice.
Next slide, please. Okay, so this is something I was quite happy with. This sort of goes back to another question as well. So about designers giving different feedback and stuff like that. So this is something Matt, who's the senior designer, this is one of those things where he gave me this idea in one of the meetings, and this is about the finlets. So know those vertical things in the first image. Those
the tail planes.
Yeah. So if you look at the Revel one, that's the one I was looking at because no one accurate. Is it accurate minute? Not accurate miniatures. Who's the company? No, who's the one that does the classic airframes? That's it. Yeah. So they do, but obviously we couldn't buy that.
You could have asked Andy Pranjit.
Yeah, Andy's got one. You could have borrowed his.
Could have borrowed mine.
He'll sell it to you still now.
Yeah, I know he'd probably sell it to me now because it's not really
Yeah,
worth
you
much.
can have it now.
Like, worthless, that kit.
But on the Revel one, the finlets, they go in from the front, and it's one piece, but the tail. I should have taken a picture of it and put it on the slide, but you see it, and it's just like, oh, this is not the best way to put something together, and it's just like sometimes. This is a really good thing, and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to design it? How am I going to do this? And then Matt just said really simply, why don't you just have it vertical so you can have the little the rounded bit molded onto the tail planes, and then have these bits coming from the top and bottom. And it's just like something. The thing is, it's one of those things where you're looking at it for so long, all you need is someone just to come over and have a look at it, and they'll give you the answer in 30 seconds. And the reason is because you become blind to it, like you're CAD blind, like because you've been looking at something for so long. And this goes back to modeling as well. Like the amount of times where we probably do something and then we're trying to like force something or trying to come up with an idea of how to do something. Someone will look at it and then just give you a bit of feedback and then come up with an answer. We have this all the time. We as designers interact with each other quite a bit, and we're always like offering each other feedback and stuff like that. So that's a really good thing that we really do. And one thing this goes back to something I sort of did on the Mosquito as well, is that you have all these interlocking systems. So if you see the finlets, they sort of lock into each other in like a little grid pattern. You can kind of see it on the pictures. And same with the tailplane as well. They basically lock in and overlap on each other, and then that way they can't be wonky. They can be wonky, but it's quite hard to for them to be wonky. So you won't have like one tailplane going up and then one tailplane going down. You can it lines it up quite nicely. And the same thing I've done with the wings. I've done it on the tailplanes where they go into the fuselage. So you've got a recess in the fuselage, and then that way you get a really nice joint.
So again, they're stepped. So this one overlaps the other one, yeah?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So the other nice thing I do when building these ones, because I've seen it in other ones, is obviously you can glue these surfaces here. So when you insert them through, you don't end up with glue marks.
Exactly.
So it's not like squirting glue out anywhere, because you just put that in, and then once it's inside, they'll overlap. So yeah, and also it gives better strength to the entire kit with alignment.
Yeah. That's something I was quite happy with, and it works quite well. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you guys something. I don't know how well it's going to turn out on camera, but I'm going to try. I'll show you guys something at the end.
Cool.
So yeah. Next slide, please. So this is something I'm quite proud of. This, in my designs, I always try and put like an innovation into it, or try and push the boundary. Try and do something that we haven't done before. So with the Mosquito, we had, with the starter sets, we had that shadow stand. With the Mosquito, we had the mask sets that are come in the kit, and then you have the landing gear where you use the bottom wing as a jig. John built that Mosquito.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
Yeah, no,
How
it's
did
a
you
lovely
find
kit.
Okay, good.
A lovely kit. Went together really well.
Good. No, I'm glad that.
15% off in the shop. Sorry.
With the Buccaneer as well, I had that little you pre-drill the holes if you wanted to for the fuselage. If you wanted to expose the engine, then you have a mask set for the engine as well. All those little things, I'm just trying to like do something that hasn't been done before, or not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but doing it so that it helps with the modeler and the building experience. One thing I was quite happy with this is that how many times have we done hinges? So there's 4 hinges, 8 hinges in total, 4 on each side. How many times have we done hinges and they're all different? And then when you cut them off the sprue, you don't know which one's which and you get it wrong. So what I've done is, if you can kind of see in the instructions, Phil, could you flick it back to me?
Yep.
So you can kind of see it. You see it in the presentation stuff like that, but what I've done is I molded an extra piece on, and it is a piece with a number on it. So it's got S1, S2, S3, S4, and and the other side P1, P2, P3, P4. So you cut it off the sprue and everything, and then what you can do, you can put it on a crocodile clip and paint and weather it. And when it comes to your final assembly, then you cut it off one at a time and then glue it in place.
Smart idea. Genius,
yeah.
Definitely.
To be honest, I was quite happy the way it turns out, because obviously I built them on multiple ones. It does work out quite well. So yeah, it was just like such a simple thing. And the thing is, it's really easy to cut. All you need, don't use like your godhand snippers or whatever, but just use some regular side cutters, cut it off, minimal cleanup, if not no cleanup, and then you just pop it in. And you do that at the end. Just do it one at a time, because if you cut them all off, then you've sort of defeated the point of having it with number systems over there.
But to be honest, going back to all those Hornets, I tell you what, that's still the one. It was probably only on after I'd done about 100, because of the actuators on the Hornet, that I suddenly thought there's slight differences. Because before you'd always be doing it, well, that's the wrong one, because it's like big, slightly smaller, but they're very close. So no, definitely. Yeah,
they're all very close to each other, but slightly different, and then obviously that will affect the way the flaps and everything go together.
Yeah, definitely. No, smart idea, that one.
Cheers. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm like most proud of in this probably year. I was like, I'm so good. Just something so simple like.
He's peaked too early. He's done this now, and it's peaked already.
That is something that does go in your mind when you're designing kits. You're like, oh, what else is there left to do in terms of innovation and stuff like that? But there's always something that to do. Well, as far as I know, I haven't like reached that point where I can't think of anything else in new designs. But it's just like, and the thing is, as well, this sort of goes back to how our team is as well. Phil was mentioning this a couple of weeks ago. Remember when you were saying you had a group of modelers back in your commission days, and they had like tips and tricks, but they wouldn't tell anyone because they didn't want anyone. So we as designers, we're like so chill. We get along with each other really well, and we pass on like our ideas, or let's just say we're doing something on CAD and we figure out something. We tell everyone. We're not ones to like keep it to ourselves and no one's in competition with each other. We're all here to make a better product and give the best experience for the modelers. And I really do like our team. It's just like, we're all pretty chill. We all get along with each other. It's pretty good.
Cool. But you wouldn't tell Ravel. So,
to be honest, with those like mask sets and stuff like that, where you sort of put it in the kit, you kind of hope. In a way, I'm kind of hoping that other manufacturers put that stuff in, because then it's like, if I'm not this idea needs to be like kept in house and stuff like that, because obviously it's quite easy for someone just to put a mask set like as a masking piece inside another kit. So for a classic thing is wheel wells. If you want to paint the wheel well, or canopies. Canopies are quite a common one. How many times, like a Spitfire canopy is quite a common one, where you put the windscreen on and then you put the rear one on, but then you've got to mask up yourself with foam or tape or something like that. But in the center bit, that's quite a common thing. It's just like if someone was just to make a mask piece and then have it in the kit, or maybe have it as other means, then go ahead. But I'll take it as my idea first.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, claim it for you.
I did notice that with the Sea King, they've done 2 front windscreens, one with wipers and one without.
Yeah, I wonder who came up with that idea.
Don't make his head any bigger.
Yeah,
We'll never get him out of his shed.
Yeah. But to be honest, that's one of those things that are just like such a simple thing to do. And the thing is, people really appreciate it. I mean, the Buccaneer was the first one to have that. You have 2 clear parts, one with the wiper and one without the wiper. So you please both camps. I can't imagine anyone complaining about it, because you've got the best of both worlds in that.
Definitely.
So yeah. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back onto your when you were talking about the landing gear and the nose weight thing, landing gear was actually fairly complicated to do. It doesn't show it too well on this. It's hard to show. It's hard to show it when you need to show it in person. It's like the building experience, because you've got one main landing gear piece, and then you've got 2 little struts that come off it that you glue on after. And the landing gear needed to be strong. Sometimes when I was designing it, sometimes a lot of manufacturers ignore certain struts, and that's perfectly fine, because sometimes you can overcomplicate something and it's not actually feasible. But when I was designing it, I was like, this landing gear needs to be strong, because it's got to take an enormous amount of weight, and obviously not knowing after is that it's got to take an even bigger nose weight than I initially thought. So it has worked out quite well, but I'm just wondering how people would find it. So it'll be interesting to see when it comes out and people start building it. Do people find it too fiddly or not? Because I've only built it so far when it's not painted, but everyone's going to be painting it and then assembling it after. So it would just be interesting to see whether people find it too fiddly or not, because there's about 3 or 4 contact points, which is quite complicated for landing gear. It's like Hawker Tempest. Hawker Tempest landing gear is quite complicated when you've got glue all those little struts together, especially like the 48 scale one. But it is like that in real life, and it obviously adds to the strength. But yeah, I am right now. I'm glad I've done it like this. It's not overly complicated and it's not too simple. I think it's just the right amount of blend of detail and stuff like that. But when people get it in their hands, they will be the judge of that. So I'm hoping I haven't made it too complicated, but it needed to be complicated, if that makes sense, to have that strength.
Well, you say you've got the trade-off, because I think, when you're starting to put in 50 grams of weight, you need a good beefy undercarriage to sort of hold that and support that as well. So no, nicely thought out.
If you do notice it as well, you can see those 2 little guide rails on either side of the wheel well. Those are actually for the wing spars as well, so they guide it in quite nicely.
Yeah, follow the slots.
Yeah. So it doesn't stray off in another direction. It stays on course and then slots in quite nicely. Cool.
Nice.
Next slide, please.
Ooh.
So this is an interesting challenge.
Rotating props. Yes.
Yes. So obviously they don't rotate, like it's not like a button or something that presses it and it rotates or anything like that. It's not like some fancy mechanics. But I did want to have each propeller turn on their own manually, as in know when people just adjust it. But whenever we do these things, amount of times we've put propeller parts together and it says don't glue here so it can move, but then it's really difficult to not glue it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, especially if you're using extra thin, because it just zips off on its own.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But I'm actually quite proud of this one. It works out quite well. So it's all explained in the instructions how to do it and stuff like that. You don't, just to point out, you don't actually build the propeller hub and that front cowling and then plop the whole thing in. This is just done for this presentation. It's done in a sensible way in the instructions. But the image on the bottom right, you have that big shaft that goes in. You can kind of see in the exploded. So you have that big shaft that goes in that big rod, and then you have a flat circular plate that goes on it. Yeah, that's it. And then you have that flat circular plate. And then on the image on the right, if you just apply the extra thin glue on that green circle, you have got no chance of gluing that shaft in place.
Got you.
Yeah, just there.
So this part here fits in this recess in here.
I get it.
Yes.
So so that way it's not on this one in here. So this can still spin. Got you.
Yeah.
Good.
So just again, little things like that. You're thinking about it, and then sometimes you're thinking, are you overcomplicating it? But again, this is like something where I do it after. I'm like, this time well spent thinking about this sort of stuff and then getting it right. And then in the instructions, the middle, the rear propeller, it just sort of slots on, and then the front propeller you glue on, and there's plenty of room for you to glue it. There's no chance of you gluing the whole thing together. It works out quite well, and I'm quite happy with it.
You thought about using polycaps before to mount things like that?
Yeah, we have, but the thing is, I think it just adds like another manufacturing step or cost to it.
Yeah.
I know because I'm assuming Tamiya have a whole tool for that.
Right. To make polycaps
for everything, don't they?
Yeah, they have polycaps for everything. So you would actually technically have to design a tool for it and have polycaps for it, and then you want to make sure you use those polycaps or justify that as polycaps for all future designs.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean, because that's what Tamiya do. I think it's the recently I've done the F-14 Tomcats. The tailplanes go in like that as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of their armor stuff has it as well. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, the Spitfire. I've just been working on the propeller mounts with the polycap.
Yeah.
From the spinner, inside the spinner, you just push it on to similar to that. Just push it on.
But I don't like to have easy solutions. I like to make things difficult and think of a hard way. But also so that propeller on the bottom left image, if you notice as well, I've done a hexagonal cutout in the center instead of a circular cutout. So that means it runs on there a lot more freer, and there's not so much friction. And that has worked out quite well. A lot of other companies have done that before on previous kits. I'm trying to think of which ones, but you do normally see it where you have a hexagonal hole and a circular pin, and it just means it just goes together a lot more nicer. So that's one thing I've done on this. It has worked out quite well.
Nice. Very nice. Very cool. It's a cool design because they're counter-rotating, aren't they, to each other? And it was only a few years ago I discovered that they could shut one engine down, which is obviously, it's two engines, one for each line. So you could actually shut down the rear prop for cruising and just use the front one. And that's cool. So I know the Bear can do that as well. And the Shackleton did it, but I didn't realise the Gannet could do it. So, interesting stuff.
But you think, how does it even work, counter-rotating propellers? Like, logically, when you're thinking about it, it's like, how can it even work? Like, if they're going in the opposite direction, surely it doesn't work. But it's like, I'm not a physicist or anything like that, or aeronautical engineer, but when you're thinking about it, it's like, it shouldn't work, but it seems to.
You think the front one would take away the power from the second one, wouldn't you?
Well, the thing is, I think the way they work it is obviously it's pushing a slab of air into the other one in like one direction, and because the second one then pushes it in the other direction, it's supposed to increase the pressure, if you like, and the amount of thrust coming off of it. I don't know if it did, because it didn't seem to take off that well in future, did it? But with turboprops, I suppose, sort of, design. But yeah, that was the theory behind it. You've got different pressures between them, and obviously it increases the pressure when it hits the second one. So it's like an extra boost, isn't it? But...
And it was an anti-torque device as well, because obviously with one spinner, it will spin one way, the airframe will naturally want to spin the other way, but with a counter-rotating prop, it cancels it out.
Yeah. Next slide, please.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this sort of goes back onto that thing where I think on a lot of my designs now, I'm starting to add a lot of jigs for pre-drill out holes. So this is quite a nice one. So because the fuselage is molded side to side, but you need to drill a hole from the top. Obviously, when you try and do it, you couldn't get a decent hole, if that makes sense, because it was very because obviously they're in two different directions. So the injection molding process doesn't really allow you to have a proper hole. So I just made this little jig that you can see in purple in the instructions, and it just allows you to drill holes for this little aerial part, and that's it. Yeah.
Very nice. And also, to be honest, it's quite difficult trying to drill a hole on a curved surface without scooting off. So yeah, no, it's nice.
So yeah, it's just like little things like that I like doing now. Yeah, you'll see a lot of jigs in my kits in the future.
Well, no, it all aids to making everything square and in the right place. So definitely. But yeah, trying to get an injection molded hole, obviously near so much of a curve like that, near the edge, not easy.
Cool. Next slide, please. So this is something that might question people a bit. So this is going on to the weapons, and I was in a bit two minds about it. But you can see that the weapons, so that you got sonar buoys and you got depth charges, and they go on these little racks. You can sort of see, and the racks have like pins going into it, so it goes into the part. However, before you put the two halves together, you've got to drill out these holes, and I could have molded it with the holes on. It makes it a bit longer when you've got to drill out the holes, but the reason why I did it, so you have to drill out the holes, is that if you want to use these same parts for another kit, or if you want to use it for a diorama, it makes it a lot easier if you have to drill out the holes now, because it's easier to drill out a hole, or not drill out a hole, than it is to fill a hole.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Good idea.
So you've got your two holes on this one here and one there for drilling out.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to drill out, because if you've got 5 of them and you've got 2 holes on each side, so you've got to drill out a hole 10 times, and it might seem a bit laborious. Even when I was doing it, I was like, oh, it's a bit long, but if you just have a little electric drill and then you just go through it, it's pretty simple. But it was just one of those things where just spending a few minutes drilling out holes is a lot easier for people if you want to use it, if you want to use these weapons for another kit, or if you want to use it for a diorama. I just thought in my head, I was like, it just makes it easier for people who want to use these things for other stuff.
Yeah. Nice. Very cool.
Next slide, please. Okay, so this is this was quite a challenge. So Chris, Phil might remember, and anyone who's watched the Seeking presentation, Chris brought this up in his presentation about the Seeking. So sort of had this idea of having, it's hard to understand, so sort of bear with me. I'm going a bit caddy on this sort of side. But what you basically have, you have separate parts, and then we have, I've gone on the other presentations before, but what you do, you have a skeleton model with all the shapes, and then those shapes you copy into the parts, and those parts form what you can see here. So what I've done is I formed a skeleton model full of the rivets for all the parts. And the reason for doing that is that it makes it easier for going through the CAD and makes it a bit more quicker. Because rivets add, they really do slow down the CAD quite a bit. And you can sort of see like there's a ridiculous amount of rivets on the fuselage of the Gannet. So yeah, this is just one thing that me and him were working on at the same time, because we were both like neck and neck in terms of like when we were going to finish our projects, and we were like at certain points, similar points when we were adding the detail. So then I thought, I had a little think about it, had a little test on the Gannet, and then Chris done it on his Seeking, and then it worked quite well. And then I applied it to the Gannet. It was just like, yeah, this is just me being a bit geeky here and just explaining something a bit on CAD, but yeah, quite a complicated.
So just out of interest, saying about that, because obviously we were talking about, I remember from the last presentation with Chris, and there's obviously the amount of computer horsepower needed, especially when you're moving this thing around, because it's all these points in space and it's got to calculate them all. Do you have a beefy computer for doing all of this?
Kind of, but I think the software limits the computer. I think the software needs we have updates and stuff like that, but because the software was done like 20 years ago, it's still built on those old foundations, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they were just like and to be honest, this is probably most CAD softwares as well, like SolidWorks, Fusion 360 is those two are the probably most common ones, is that they can get very slow over time. Well, not over time, but like when your CAD model gets more complicated. So yeah, but other than that, we do have quite beefy computers. Like they do handle quite a bit, but then there's only a certain point where you can only, like, if you had the best computer on the whole planet, it still wouldn't make the CAD model fast because the software has limits, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I still, from a personal point of view, just trying to edit 4K, video, it uses so much resources from your computer to try and do it all. And I know guys who use Blender and things like that, it's bad enough. But obviously when you're dealing with, obviously in this type of situation and you're adding thousands of rivets and all those tiny details into it, it must get a bit laggy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's, what do you call it? I think, like, video editing is more graphics heavy, whereas this one, CAD modeling, is more CPU heavy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, this is just me, like, being a bit nerdy and just explaining this sort of stuff, because, I like, just want to show you guys.
No, it's nice. Very nice.
Next slide, please. So again, going back onto a wing fold, the wing fold was a complicated thing. Doing it once, making it fold once was difficult enough. Making it fold twice was another challenge, and then you've got to make it right. So one thing you got to make sure is, when I was designing it, is that you do the wing fold, but you got to, in real life, the wing folds, where they touch, where they come at the center, they actually come together very close. They're very close to hitting each other, just above the fuselage spine. So that was quite a key thing in terms of like trying to get it all right. Getting all the hinges, the parts and everything together was a big challenge, and trying to obviously pack in as much detail as I can into that wing fold. Again, was another challenge, but I'm hoping people really like the amount of detail that's gone into this kit, because it did take a while, so I do hope people enjoy it.
Again, I think the trouble you've got, and people don't appreciate, is that in reality you've probably got incredibly strong materials, metals and things in here doing these hinges and that, and you're limited to styrene, and it's got to take the weight of all of that part on a couple of hinges. I know you've got your pole here as well for secure one, but again, was there anything where you couldn't do it exactly because of the limitations of the materials you're working with?
Yeah, kind of. So you had to pick and choose, because they hinge at different points. So obviously you can't do all of them. You have to pick the ones that are the most sensible and the most strongest. But when you see the kit and everything, there are some of them that are like, so it's hard to see in the image, but there's these like holes that sort of go into it. They're just there visually, but it looks like as if it goes into the wing. You'll understand once you start building it, then you'll understand and see what it's like. But those ones, so I've chosen 2 fixed points that are like the main points of connection, and then you've got other ones that are more visual. But yeah, and obviously trying to get it all to draft and all that sort of. Trust me, it was just like it was a challenge, and obviously the wheel well goes there as well, so it was a challenge. So it doesn't clash with that.
Yeah.
Because it's all quite tight. So yeah, big challenge. I used the word challenge in this presentation, and that's because this whole design was a challenge. But without a doubt, one of my favourite designs in terms of one of my favourite projects.
Personally, I'm not a fan of like wing folds in general and that, but the Gannet is probably one exception because it's got such a unique way of folding the wings.
Yeah.
When I build it, that's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Matt loves wings folds. He's always talking about how you should always fold wings on it.
Fantastic wing folds, love them to bits. To be fair, like John says, the Gannet is a bit unique how it does it, so it can get away with it. It bugs me when the wing fold and it just covers all your cockpit up, which they normally do. Obviously, the Gannet's a bit different, so you can get away with it. And obviously, it makes it a bit more compact for displaying without them, big wingspan. So yeah, I'll give that one a pass, to be honest.
Cool. Next slide, please. Yeah, I'll just finish it off with a render.
Cool. Nice. Very nice. Very cool.
And then next slide, please. And that's
it.
Cool. So, if you go over to me, I'm just going to quickly show something. I don't know how well it's going to come out on camera, and then we'll go over to questions.
Yeah.
So, we've got a Gannet here. This is a test shot one. So it's just got a little bit of primer on there. But if I show you, nothing on here is glued, so everything sort of slips off.
Yeah.
So you got the flaps and everything. All pop off.
Nice.
So the fits and everything are quite nice. And then you got a really nice strong wing joint. So if you see the spar, it sort of slots in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a transformer.
Yeah, that's it.
You got nice beefy wing joints, spars.
Yeah.
And then watch comes out. Watch comes out.
No glue required.
Yeah, that's it. It's glueless.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Nice. Very nice.
I took that into work and then I showed everyone and then I was like, oh, watch this. And then everyone was like, oh, we thought we was all glued together.
Yeah, that's it. Someone thinks, oh, I've broken it. No, you're all right. It's not glued together. That's the usual way.
Yeah. Bombay is really nice. That's got like a nice chunk of detail in there as well. Like there's really big spars going on in there as well with a bit of rivet detail. Yeah, that's quite a nice little sub-assembly once you have it like that. So you got the front cockpit here, then you got the center cockpit, and then you got the rear.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very, very cool.
Well, you go there as well. That's what I was talking about, the recesses into the wing. So they just sort of pop in and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which really does give you a nice surface then. You know?
Yeah. And then the tail planes as well, they sort of slot in together.
Yeah.
Like that. They just sort of slot in and overlap.
And no glue required, as we said.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good design, that.
But you do need to glue it, though.
Yeah. So.
Well, I thought you could just like slot it together when you carry it to shows and back.
Yeah, when you take it to shows, you just pop it apart. It'll be absolutely fine. Cool. Very
like
good.
Lego.
Just a quick question. Why the AS instead of the AEW?
Oh, that's a very good question, Andy. That's one of the questions.
Can't answer it.
Yeah.
To be honest, ASW, so if you had to choose one, AEW is very limited in terms of like its service life and who it serves with.
It served with some famous aircraft carriers, though, didn't it? Like Royal, etc. and what have you. So.
Yeah. But the thing is, as well, is you got to think about the mileage of the kit as well.
Yeah, you got German with that, and
I mean, we can get multiple releases with the ASW. AEW is just basically a one-time thing because I'm pretty sure it was only served with the Royal Navy, and it was only a short-time thing until it was replaced by the Shackleton.
That you can do that. Yeah, say the German one, and you can do the trainer version, can't you?
Yeah, you got Australian that as well.
Australian one, yeah.
Yeah. So it was the thing is that that was the main reason. Like you're going to get better mileage with the ASW. You're never going to know which one's going to sell better because you're never going to design both of them at the same time and then release them unless you're living in that parallel universe. It's all like
yeah.
It's just like if you release the AEW one and then in another universe you release the ASW one, which one for more, and it'll probably be the ASW one. But that's what we're thinking and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be honest, that's a question that we get a lot. It's one of the questions that Phil sent as well.
Yeah. Oh, is it? All right. Sorry for jumping on your questions.
Yeah, it was Andy's question. That was it. It's fine. Is it Andy, age 7 3/4? But yeah, so anyway, we've got some questions pre-done here. We'll run through these, and then what we'll do is we can then throw it open to everyone. Then, if you've got any questions, and can run through like that.
Yeah, cool. You want me to read that, or is it the ones that you sent me?
Yeah, I can read them to you if you want, and then you can answer them, whichever way you want to do it. So,
Yeah,
Carl basically is asking that said question. He says, now that the new 48 scale Gannet is due to be released, which, do you want to remind people what you told us before?
What, just now?
You know what we were saying about the Gannet release date.
Oh yes, it will be November release date, most likely after Telford. That will be the same with the Buccaneer RAF one as well. They're both due at the same sort of time.
Cool.
So it won't be here in October. We'll be here in November.
Nice. Okay, so we've got a small little delay, everyone, but they are coming probably sometime after Telford. So, because we're going to be answering this question on every Wednesday show until it comes out. So, right, he was basically saying there, do Airfix intend to do a follow-up release with the AEW3?
No.
So.
And the thing is, so just to point out as well, why people say, can you not just do that? Because it's like slightly different.
The whole body is completely different.
Totally different, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, the entire section.
So the only thing that's the same is this bit of the wing. And maybe the tailplanes. The entire fuselage is different. The wings here at this point are different, or the cockpit obviously is different. The landing gear is actually different as well because the landing gear is higher. It's got to be taller because it's got to accommodate the
radome underneath.
So, yeah. So it's not like you can just change the fuselage. It's like doing an entire new kit.
Basically, different aeroplane, isn't it?
So,
Which I think that is probably true for a lot of ones. When we get people, they often say, you could just do... It's not actually as simple as that. There's usually significant changes to structural parts of any model kit to be able to do it, you know? So
I think you asked that question at that event, the Seeking event, to the guys about what... it's those helicopters that you guys are mentioning that are quite similar. I can't remember which ones they are now, off the top of my head. Wasp?
with the Wasp and the Scout.
That's
So we were saying, wasn't it? Because I said, it was one of my questions I said to the team, wasn't it? Any plans to do the Wasp with the Scout? And as we pointed out to me, they are so different. It's not just one's got skids and one's got wheels.
Yeah.
There's a hell of a lot of difference going in there. So it's not a straightforward job just to chop it out like the original release was. You know, because that's what the original one, you could do both in the same boxing, if I remember rightly, and it's not quite as simple as that when you get down to the more detailed levels of it, what people expect today.
Yeah, exactly. Similar to the Seeking as well, like the Sikorsky one and the Westland one. They're two completely different
totally
things.
different beasts. Yeah, definitely. So, although you still got to do the jungly, just saying, you need the 3 in the family. And let's face it, it's not like you haven't got references. Right, okay, question from Jim. He says, at what point in a release design process does Airfix decide on how many versions, colours and schemes are going to be included in the first boxing, and also consideration possibilities for additional versions in future boxings?
Cool. So this is something that Luke, who's our researcher, and Martin, who's the development manager, and sometimes the designers, but very briefly or not, or very loosely, shall we say, they're the ones who mainly focus on that. So they have. Luke normally has a rough idea at the beginning of the project how many releases we're going to get and how many schemes are going to be. But once you're getting more into the design, that's when things start to get a bit more finalized and closer to the end of the design phase. That's when you know, because at that point you might want to do this version, and then it's not possible for X, Y, and Z. So there's no point of putting that much time and effort at the beginning because it might be for nothing. So you normally finalise the schemes and everything a bit more. You have a rough idea at the beginning, then they get finalised a bit later on in the design phase. So, but by the end of the design, you know how many releases you're going to get out of that kit.
Fair enough. Okay, Airfix tend to be quite sparing in providing accurate colour references, e.g. Federal Standard, British Standard, RLM, and only usually quote humble references. For obvious commercial reasons, do you think that Airfix should give better paint references, and does yourself use recommended humble paints when airbrushing for Airfix personally? So are you using Humbrol colours to paint your models?
No.
No. You don't use the starter set paint, really?
Yeah, so. No. I don't use Humbrol. Sort of going back onto the question about reference colour referencing, the main thing is because we're obviously work quite closely with Humbrol. I mean, like technically the same umbrella. We do reference Humbrol stuff. However, we are starting to do more stuff where you see it on like some Spitfire kits. So if you've got the underside of some Spitfire Mark 1s mainly, they're sky colour. So we don't have a colour called sky, but we give the colour for that, and then we say approximately sky. We do tend to do that a bit more often now, which you do. But we're never gonna. I don't think we're ever gonna do. Oh, this is it for AK Interactive. This is it for AK Real Colours. This is it for MIG. This is it for Tamiya. I don't think we're gonna go into that
because I know some of your kits in the past you have had obviously for British versions of stuff normally, but the actual British standard colour codes are there. You had it for the Harrier. This Harrier, it had the colour codes for it with British standard numbers.
Yeah, we do tend to do that now a bit more often with modern stuff but we try and match it with something that's in the Humbrol range, isn't it? Because there's no point referencing something that's not in our paint range.
You could quote 32159, which is Revell's sky colour.
Well, I'm not being funny. It could be worse because that Revell's colouring, where it's like 5% this, 1% of this, alchemy, a pinch of eye, bit of newt, and this will make up the right shade for what you need. Because some of theirs go on forever trying to get it right.
Not gonna lie, when you're someone new into the hobby, in which I was, that was so complicated to me because I was like, oh, you have to use these colours. I've got to make this shade of colour. And obviously you don't realise, I can just go to another manufacturer or something like that. Because it's just like, they don't, and that was not to like badmouth them or anything like that, but I feel like they do it a lot worse than what we do because they don't give you any sort of reference saying the BS numbers or standard numbers. They just say 95% of this paint or 5% of that. Just
Okay, what have we got? Question 3. It looks like that some of the classic re-releases have been very successful, e.g. the Whirlwind, the Beaver, because everyone loves a Beaver, and I'm sure that Airfix have not failed to notice that they're considering consideration to the community to new tools of these. They are types that have been neglected by most manufacturers. The Whirlwind particularly would provide many options in either piston turbine engine, cranked and non-cranked tails, as well as a host of other operators and colour schemes. So, yes. So about your classic line and all the rest of it, of re-releases and things, have you thought about obviously new tooling of them? Or is this something where you've re-released, say, like the Beaver, probably means you're not going to do another Beaver?
Beaver.
Because he's got a Beaver. He's got a nice Beaver. And a Whirlwind. He's got them all there. He's queued up for this.
Get him bought, people. Get him bought.
That's it. Yeah. So this is my question as well. I'm sort of interpreting into here. But let's face it, from a community point of view, I think you've been incredibly well embraced, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but I told you needed to market them as classic kits, put it on the boxes, and just be really open about it. And I think, and we've discussed it, we've done whole shows on this in the past, that you've got that nostalgia. It's really nice to build a kit that you did when you were 10 again now, just to see how it goes, and you forgive all its four-boils and things like that. But these latest ones which are coming out, such as the Whirlwind, does that put really the sort of, you know, the hammer on any thoughts of doing a new tooled one in the future?
Quite obviously yes or no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give like a political answer. I'll be honest. Back in those days when those kits came out, the market was very different. You've got to realise, like, so the Beaver and the Whirlwind, they're very. If someone were to do a new tool one, you'd be like, oh, that's quite a niche subject, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like something like a Buccaneer or a Spitfire. Even technically, Buccaneer could technically be classed as being a bit niche. But back in those days, the market was very different. The market was a lot bigger. Companies could afford to splay out and do stuff that was a bit out of the box. If there's like a decent enough vintage classic kit, it will be quite hard to see doing a new tool one. Don't get me wrong; it's not like we're not going to do it, or I'm saying we are going to do it. It just sort of depends on the subject matter and stuff like that. And it just because if you think about it, if you release a Beaver now, and then let's just say about 4 years time, you do a new tool one, is it going to sell as well? Like how many people are going to build a Beaver new tool one? Even if it's new tool, how many people are going to build one? And your most likely answer is probably going to say not that many.
No. And again, I think I can answer for you on this, is that obviously I pushed and pushed and pushed for the Vulcan, you know, and there's probably not a single time when we've had meetings and with Airfix and that I've said, you've got to do a new Vulcan, you've got a new Beaver. And I appreciate, because once one of your guys was really honest with me and said, it's our top selling kit, or one of our top selling kits, all the time it's selling, we're not going to retool it. But again, at some point, it did happen, you know, but again, the Vulcan is in, you know, it fits the remit of Airfix totally. British aircraft, legendary, you know, and all the rest of it. So I think that was why, you know, and you did, and you know, it's a fantastic kit. As I say, I was probably the most happy out of anyone when that one got redone and things with it. But again, I know what you mean. It's one of those things where you're dealing with something that's a little bit of a niche subject. And how many would you sell in this day and age? Because let's face it, back when it came out the first time, it was almost new. So it was like, you know, everybody had them.
Just some stuff that we're bringing out, they are technically niche stuff. They're niche subjects.
Yeah.
The one thing is, though, I think that's good is the pricing of them.
Yeah, we haven't passed on.
You're not cashing in, shall we say? You know what I mean? They are decent, you know, really decent pocket money prices, I suppose. This, you know, which I think is good for reflecting the age of the molds and stuff. You know, let's say other companies who bring out 50-year-old, 60-year-old kits don't charge
75 quid for them.
What they should be charging. Just saying.
But Phil said he built a really nice Saturn V rocket a few years ago. It was so good.
Or something like that, wasn't it? It was words to that effect. Yeah.
It was actually it was actually 196 scale, I think it was, the one that you built.
Was it?
It's 196.
To be honest, I don't think they know what scale it was. It was all over the place. Can you scale sheets of A4 plastic card? I don't know.
I'll tell you what as well, because I did say this the other day. Do you know these vintage classics now? And especially I know for that one there at the bottom, and I know for the Antarctic, and I think there's a few others, you can get mass sets now. Which, you know, I know that sounds a bit, well, what's the point? But to be fair, a lot of these got windows, so I think for the money, you know, like P-Wit and KV models, more who do the left field stuff, are doing more of the older kits. Yeah. Where you can get a mass set where you've been like, oh, if I had a mass set, I'd do it, you know, instead of manually doing it.
So the good thing as well, you've made an effort with is it the Beaver has got new clear parts?
I think the Beaver has, yeah. What was the other one that's got new? Was it the Beagle Basset? Has that got new clear parts as well? Was it? One of them has, yeah. That's
always the bugbear with older kits, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So at least you've made an effort there to.
Yeah. I think that has as well. The Antarctic's got new clear parts as well, if I remember. I think that one's been retooled, and that is, like you say, everything else you can either sand off the detail, rescribe it, or do whatever you want to do. But always the clear parts are rubbish. There's not a lot you can do with them unless you really like want to vac form your own and stuff. So I think that's really good, like that you do. I wish, to be honest, though, Pranjit, you'd have done nuclear parts for this kit because they don't even fit. They're awful. That's the only thing I really do wish you'd have done, because the rest of it is all right. It's a bit basic, and I know it's an old kit, but you can do something with it. But the clear pots are just shocking. So there you go. It is what it is.
Never mind. Right, okay. And he ends on that one about, obviously, you're clearly working on the new tooled 48 scale Jaguar GR3. When will we see that? Straight after the new 24 scale Sea Harrier, and they're going to do an FA2 for it as well. So that's what I'm going with.
Also a Tornado and a Wessex
ready.
Oh yeah, and a Wessex and a Tornado. Yeah. Now we've got our personal hotline with Airfix. We're expecting everything we want. Yeah. So yeah, right, okay. Lawrence says a senior designer at Lego explained on a TV show that during the design phase of Lego models, they can suddenly take the model and hand it over to another designer to continue with it, just to make sure that the creativity keeps flowing. Does Airfix work the same way? So could it be that during a design phase that someone else comes along with a second option kind of feedback? Well, I think you covered that as well, didn't you, with working all together?
So we don't actually pass on the entire design over, because it's like passing on a model kit halfway through someone else is building it. It's like, everyone's got their own feel to it and their own approach to it. But a lot of things that we do, and I was covering it a bit earlier, is that a lot of us just sit together and then just have a little chat. Even sometimes we're just, even if it's not usually a meeting, it's just chatting away and just talking about our designs and stuff like that. Oh, I've got a bit of trouble on this. You guys got any ideas? Or just say, oh, look what I did. I've more or less got this right. Is there anything that I can improve on? And there's 5 of us in the design team. So we're all, like I was saying, we're all pretty chilled. We all get along with each other. We've all got good personalities, and we're all quite open with and just chatting with each other. It's like I say, it's not like, oh, I'm not going to help you with your project because it's going to make it better than mine. It's not nothing like that. It's just like, we just help each other out, and again, at the end of the day, it's to make a better product.
I think also it shows when I've been with you guys and we've done events and bits and pieces, you can feel that you're all friends doing it. It's not like bosses and things around, and it's actually really nice because you're almost human. And I think that shows as well with the projects you work on and some of the bits and pieces you're up to, with helping each other else out of that. And I think that's what's really nice about Airfix as a company, because I know other companies aren't like that. And I know. But it's really nice, as you say, you see it, and it's quite an open, friendly, getting it done, working together, So
we've got a good working environment within the team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, who and how is the decision made to include specific decal paint options in a kit? Is it based on a meeting, or does one person decide based on the personal preference which option to include?
Yeah, so we sort of covered that earlier about
with Luke during this design phase and things like that, isn't it? So
to be honest, it's mainly like my manager Martin and Luke the researcher, but then sometimes as a designer when I'm looking at stuff. So the Buccaneer is the 48 scale one is a classic example. So when I was designing it, I remember seeing one with the RAF one where RAF Lossy Mouth, where they carried 4 sea eagles. And I was like, oh, we've got to do that as a scheme, because I've done the 4 sea eagles in the kit, so we've got to do one as an option. So stuff like that sometimes we might pass on and say, oh yeah, we need to do that, or we need to do a Gulf War one because we've got to do a Gulf War one. There's just little stuff like that.
Cool, fair enough. Right, John says, let me just scroll a bit. The Vintage Classic range, I think, is an excellent incentive. May long it continue. Nostalgia personified. So yes, personified even. A lot of our sold dinosaurs still have or have acquired older Airfix kits in their stashes. One of the appeals of the Vintage Classic releases is the state of the old decals. My question is, have Airfix investigated overproducing the decals of the VC run, Vintage Classic run, and offer these for sale via the airfix.com or direct to the public? So aftermarket decals forum, I think it's what he means.
Is that what he means? I thought he meant the same decals but just separate.
I think what he means is if you've got some of the old kits, one of the big thing is the decals have probably gone horrible over the years about actually being able to get the Airfix decals again that have come through for it. I'm thinking that's how I'm sort of taking it.
Okay. Yeah. Probably not, because it's like that's something we would just let the aftermarket companies take care of. And then don't forget as well is that when you got a minimum order quantity for these decals, if there's only like 10 people who are going to build a 124 scale Harrier, there's no point of doing a run for like a couple of hundred decals because you're just going to be sitting on them. So that's just something for the aftermarket companies that will use that for. I think that's what he means anyway.
Yeah, I was sort of taking it because I had a question. Somebody asked me a long time ago about getting the same markings that are in one of your old vintage classic kits, and they were saying about, do you think Airfix would still have them? And it's like, you can try them, shoot them a message and see, because obviously if they've re-released it and it's the same markings, but obviously sometimes you change the markings in the boxes, with various releases. So, but I did say about aftermarket as well.
Yeah, the good thing with this vintage classic thing is that it's the same kit that you from the 70s, 80s or whatever, but it's got new up-to-date decals, which is quite nice.
The other thing is as well, they've been re-releasing these. You can get a lot of aftermarket decals now with different schemes, because obviously the kit's relevant again. There's no, I'll use an example of like Extra Decal. I know they've done a massive set for that. I know you can get some for the Beagle Bassett as well, and some of the other vintage classics. I'd say because there wouldn't have been no point doing them if the kit's not available. I think it's give them an incentive, like you can, you'd perhaps get like one scheme in a set of different ones, let's say Boscombe Down ones or whatever. But no, they're just doing separate ones, so you could get loads. To be fair, I think even this one comes on the Extra Decal sheet. Not that you probably need it because the decals would be fine, but obviously it's one of our many different whirlwinds that they do. So, yes.
Definitely. Okay, Malcolm says, I'd like to know what compromises you have to make when designing cockpit interior parts, given that the model's exterior is accurately reproduced, but the thickness of the cockpit walls means that the cockpit cannot be to true scale.
Do you know that is a really big challenge?
Yeah.
Because I'll answer this question very well in a future presentation, because I've got something that's like causing, which shows it quite well, but you got to think about it. Let's just say on the Gannet, you've got side instrument panels, and then you've got the thickness of that thing of the fuselage. It's going to push it in. So you do have to compromise it. A lot of things as well is the instrument panels, because when you have the cockpit combing and stuff like that, you realize that instrument panels you can't put all those dials on. So yeah, there is compromise and stuff like that to do. But the thing is, this isn't just for Airfix or like that. Everyone has to do it. There's no way you can accurately represent all those stuff. And it changes with the scales. The scale, obviously, the smaller the scale, the harder it is. The bigger the scale, the easier it is. That's obviously why bigger scales have so much more detail. Yeah, because you can obviously pack more into it.
Okay, Paul asks, what timescales do the Airfix team use in regards to retooling and re-releasing a kit? Additionally, what other factors are key for a kit retooled or re-release? For example, he's saying about the 72nd scale Jaguar was last tooled in 1970 and then last released in 2004 with new parts according to scalemates. The 72nd scale Puma was last tooled in 1973 and then reboxed in 2004. Matt has not asked me to ask this question, honest. And then other examples are with the Lightning, the 72nd scale Lightning, last released in 2010, but that was actually retooled in 2009. And again, he's got some other basically ones down there. Is there a plan to schedule to retool a lot of the older kits within Airfix's back catalogue?
So we always have a big list of stuff, and then we're working like 5-10 years in advance. I've mentioned this like on previous shows and stuff like that, and when people come chat away, is that obviously we know what our immediate projects are, so the next one and one after that. But obviously things can change and stuff like that for various reasons. Obviously, with COVID happened 3 years ago, that obviously shifts stuff out as well, because obviously you can't go around researching and stuff like that, so that stuff like that affects it. But let's just say we're going to do, for example, we're going to do a 48 scale ferry Gannet, which we did. If someone else comes out with that before we've even designed, that can obviously shift your plans and ideas and stuff like that. Because obviously there's no point of trying to put two stuff into the market like that, because obviously you're vying for the same customers in a limited market as it is. So yes, we do have a schedule and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not going to explain what we have coming up and stuff like that. But we do have a schedule, and it's not like we're going through the old catalogue and old kits and being like, yeah, we're going to do that one, or not do that one. It's not like we're going to do every single one, but we do think, okay, this one needs retooling, that one needs retooling. For example, the Vulcan is a classic example. We've had an old vintage classic one, and then we retooled that recently. The 48 scale Buccaneer, 72nd scale Buccaneer. So yeah, we do obviously have a schedule and stuff like that. In terms of like how long it takes, it depends on so many factors. Depends on the scale. Depends on what your immediate projects are and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of variations on that. It's hard to give like a definitive answer on stuff like that, but yeah, normally once a kit needs retooling is when a new one is required. For example, the Vulcan, when you can do something so much more better, like it's like 10, 15 times better or something like that. It's like when you're doing, when you can design something and it makes the old one redundant overnight.
Fair enough.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
That was a bit of a
totally. Yeah. I'll try and rattle through these because we're literally running out of time here. But obviously, got to ask about the Sea Vixen. I hate to bring it up. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I've got the said kit. Let me just get mine, because it is a beautiful kit. And to be honest, it's not that I had this ready. It literally sits here and lives here with me. So let me just grab mine, because the world needs this kit back again, because it is an absolute cracker.
I bought one off Matt before he had the shop. I think. Yeah. Before, long time ago.
That's a beautiful, lovely kit that the world needs to get back again. So when you're in on Monday, or shout to him on Monday, say Phil says, because he did it for the Vulcan for him, but we need this one retooled and back, because it is a great kit. It's a beautiful kit.
Retooled? You mean re-released, not retooled?
Re-released, because obviously it was supposed to make an appearance, wasn't it? But we know because of COVID, the production slots all got thrown out the window. So it never made it, because it was announced for a release and then it just vanished. Yeah. So we do need this particular kit back, because again, I have fond memories of building this one. It's one of my favourites. And as we know, the competition, shall we say, has got a small problem. Yeah. Well, actually, it's got quite a large problem, but but yeah, that's a beautiful one. But I know I've had 2 or 3 people ask about, will we see the Sea Vixen back again?
I'll pass that information on as well.
Cool, very good. The other one is when you're going to do a new 24 scale Harrier. Just saying, I'll just keep that one in as well. Keep that one rolling.
Next week.
Yes, I'm hoping he's on it now and he's just not telling me. So. Because again, even if he said, actually, I'm working on one now, it's coming out next week, I wouldn't be disappointed, because I loved working on that one. But yes, definitely. But I know I had a few people mention to me about with the Sea Vixen and things like that. Okay. So the other question which I saw was about, oh look, there you go, there's another one there. Sci-fi stuff. Any plans to have a tie-in with any companies for doing sci-fi type models and stuff like that? Or is that something that's not Airfix's cup of tea?
Sci-fi is something that's pretty. By sci-fi, what do you mean? Star Wars? Or
I think obviously like Ravel's got the tie-in with Star Wars and things like that. Has Airfix thought about doing other type
probably
things?
Not, just because the licensing thing is just.
Yeah. To be honest, that's my usual answer for you. I think licensing is a huge issue, really, with things like that.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else apart from Star Wars?
What, Star Trek?
Not really.
Star Trek. What's that?
Yeah, but. Yeah, I can't think of that one. What's that again?
They used to, because they used to have a range of like Space 1999 stuff, didn't they? And
Angel interceptors and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah. What was the other one as well? With the there was another one. Was it UFO? They had a time with that.
There was something with a police box and some weird Time Lord type stuff.
Was it?
What was the one with the big rocket? Is it the one with the big rocket on the front? Was that?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Was that UFO with the big rocket on the front?
Yeah, UFO.
That was UFO.
That was UFO, wasn't it?
Releasing the kits to them, aren't they? Someone is doing like the UFO stuff, the shadow thing, the interceptor. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh dear.
Cool. Right. Okay. So we throw open to normal questions then. So if anybody's got any questions, God help us.
Here we go. Chat time.
Well, while we were doing requests, we need a 1/48 scale Puma helicopter.
Right. So yeah, we want a Puma.
72nd one won't be
Just
good.
say it.
Yeah.
None of this until the tornado's sorted, please. Thunderbirds, that's not a bad shout.
Yes.
Sci-fi such as Space 99, 2001, Blade Runner, Alien, Star Wars. Yeah, it's just the licenses, the film companies.
Again, Thunderbirds is done by Ashima, isn't it? I think Ashima's got the license tied up with Thunderbirds.
Yeah, but again, that's getting niche again, isn't it? Because it's
Yeah.
for a certain age range, if you know what I mean. It's like that's the thing you've got to think of. Even if you look at Alien, Alien's a really old film now.
True.
You know, they got the new ones, but they don't count because they're not.
That does look really
Okay,
nice.
look, there's a good question. One for you there,
That's a good
Pranjit.
question.
To most people on here, you're doing your dream job, but what is the worst thing about your job?
Without getting yourself into trouble with your employees.
Yeah. Might be watching.
No,
That's it.
to be honest, it's weird. Sometimes designing the kit is the best part, and then it can also be the worst part. The length of the projects sometimes is good because then you can just focus on that one thing. But then there's other times where you get like brain fog and then you're looking at the same thing over and over again. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, I love it, but you're doing this from like 9 to 5 every day. And you're looking at the same thing. You just come in looking at the screen. I think the difficult part, the worst part I find about the job, or the most difficult part, is sitting down on a desk and looking at a screen all day. Because I'm quite an active person. I like walking around and stuff like that. Obviously, you can't walk around and do your own thing. So yeah, in terms of that, what's the like difficult part of the job? I'd probably say it's a weird one, but it's just like just sitting down here and looking at and staring at a screen for all day. Because I'm not gonna lie, my eyes are starting to go a bit, and all of us designers have problems with our wrists.
Yeah.
Because we're using the mouse so much. It's just like that one thing that a lot of us struggle with. We've tried those like sideways mouses and stuff like that, but there are times where it sounds a bit weird or something like that. But
well, it's just RSI, isn't it? You're sat there and
yeah,
repetitive strain injury. I know you get those mice that are really weird. I tried one once for me that is upright. It's like holding a gun, and you're you've got
two mice here. I've got one full mouse and then one normal mouse.
Yeah.
So I tend to switch over and stuff like that, but. Yeah, because we're literally clicking like thousands of times a day. Like we're clicking all the time. So whenever we got to hover our model around, we got to click the middle mouse button and then hover around. So you're doing that all the time. Yeah, the amount of times you're clicking on the buttons is just like a bit crazy. So yeah, in terms of the part that I don't enjoy the most, that's probably that. Just sitting down.
A bit like Minority Report, was it, where you can just move your hands and then just like
that's what he wants. Yeah, one of them screens.
You know what I mean? So you can just move it all back and then like at least you're being active. Then you're moving all your arms, not just your like wrists and fingers. If you know
you'd be like Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying.
That's a good.
End it with bad shoulders, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, shoulders then.
Your shoulders will be proper ripped because from all that.
Yeah, that's it.
Simon in chat has just put a real good question. Peramjit, what would be your ideal kit that you would want to design and put into production?
There's two now, actually. So, the first one I think most people will know is a 1-350 Queen Elizabeth class carrier.
You're a ship man, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got about 7-8 ships in the stash now. I've got one on the go now. Nathan saw that massive Taiho that I bought at Telford. That's going to be
huge thing like this, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Next will probably be like the 1-350 Gerald Ard Ford class carriers, the new American ones. That will be a pretty cool one. But in terms of aircraft, I want to a new 1/72nd, but I would prefer 1/48, but B29 Super Fortress. That's what I want. 72nd and 48 scale. Mainly, I would prefer 48 scale.
There's a bit of a tease.
Nathan will join you with that.
Queen Elizabeth at Telford.
Yeah, that was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's
a question from Sean. I thought, what you're working on now, you obviously can't tell us what it is, but what you're working on today, how many years ahead will it be released?
A year or two ahead.
Well, you're working on sort of 25, 26 designs at the moment, then, aren't you?
2024, 2025. 2024, 2025. It's the sort of... It's weird because sometimes when people ask you what year it is, I have to think what year it is because we're working a year or so in advance. Yeah. Like, you answer the wrong year, people think you're a bit crazy. Like, how do you not know what year it is? Fair enough, the date or the day or something like that, but the year is a bit of a strange one to get wrong. So we always have to think about it for a second or two.
Lynn says... Telford, Pranjit, are you? You'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be at Telford with Airfix.
Yeah, you'll see us all in the flesh.
We'll be there as well.
It's been the first time I saw you guys. Last time I saw you guys in person was at Telford 2019, so it's going to be 4 years.
Yeah,
it will be.
Crikey. Yeah. I know, time flies. Okay, Lynn's asked, can you see AI coming into design to take some of the load?
No. I literally can't.
You can see what AI produces for me. It's shocking.
Do you know what I've noticed as well? That some video people, like for reviews for like, I would like watch reviews for like shows, so the new Ahsoka or something like that. I'd just watch like reviews after it and stuff like that. But there was a program I was watching, and it was it was a P-51, it was a P-47, but it had the invasion stripes on there. But the person read it out, and he obviously got his information wrong. And I had a feeling it was through like ChatGPT or one AI thing, and he called it a P-47 Mustang.
Good.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, he's clear. Like, obviously, the computer or AI systems probably got it a bit confused because it's seen the P-47 with invasion stripes. It's probably thought it's a P-51 Mustang. Yeah. So yeah. But it's just one of those things. If you know about the aircraft, you'll know straight away.
Do you think? Do you think 3D printing will overtake injection molding?
No. So it's quite interesting that 3D printing is a good addition to injection molding, but I can't see 3D printing taking over injection molding now, because the quality you get from injection molding, you can't get those fine rivets from injection molding. And have you noticed as well that when you 3D print, let's just say you're 3D printing a wing, if you have it like that, the top surface is going to be lovely, the bottom surface is going to be a bit crap.
Yeah, because of the
supports and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, but it depends how you print it though, doesn't it? Sort of,
But then what happens if you've got a part that, well, the thing is, if you've got something like the wing here, like this, you don't really need to do it in two halves. There are some things where you don't need to do in two halves, but then there's going to be like both sides are going to be visible, but you're going to have to put supports on a side. That's going to not look that great, if that makes sense. Like, it's easier to clean up feed gates on a part or supports, and it's easier to clean up feed gates than supports.
And to be honest, let's face it, if you were trying to print a 48 scale Gannet, it'll probably take about 4 months.
Yeah, I'm talking about that's now. No,
we're not talking.
In 5 years' time, 10 years' time, it could take 2 hours. Yeah, you don't know, do you?
I mean, we talk about like quality control and stuff like that, and like the variation on like short shots and stuff like that. There's a huge amount of quality control and variation in 3D printing. You can print you can print that part off 100 different ways, and then you can have loads of warpage on one point and no warpage on another in another orientation. There's so much variation and stuff like that, but I've got to say, 3D printing, I cannot see it replacing injection molding anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay, question. Any thoughts on doing 72nd scale classic British airliners such as the BAC 111, the Trident, and the BA 146?
I'll pass it on. Obviously, I can't say, we're doing that right now, or we're not doing that. But I'll pass it on. Airlines are like it goes back to that sort of thing back in the days because Airfix done so much different variety of stuff. Again, the market was a lot different. Airlines, I can't imagine airlines selling as well as like military aircraft or stuff like that. But I'll pass it on anyway.
I mean, again, you've got to look at it as we do as a shop at what sells, don't you? To what you're producing and what we're selling is, it's got to align, hasn't it?
I mean, like the most like best sellers are World War II aircraft, and then probably closely followed, or probably around the same sort of thing, is Cold War aircraft. Those are the two like most popular things. Then probably armor is after that, and then like for example, I'm a ship modeler, a ship with a P. So those are the things I like doing, but those don't sell that well.
And Dan Woods asked a question. Once your kits are properly released, do you then build them a year or two later just for fun?
I normally build it before it's released, to be honest. So I'm building a Gannet now for my own self, but obviously look, I've built like 10 of these anyway. You can feel how heavy this is. It's quite heavy. Obviously you can't see it, but just thought I'll show you the counter rotating props. So you can rotate them in different directions, and there's not like that wiggle thing.
Yeah, it's solid.
Like, yeah, it's solid. So yeah,
it does look really, really nice.
Yeah, it's a pretty good thing. This without the doors. I haven't put the doors on.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough.
And yeah,
cool. Nice, cool. I'd say I can imagine lots of people having them on their Christmas list. It'll be one of those nice ones. It doesn't take up much room either. That's even bonus. But it's a good solid chunk of aircraft.
As well, when I was designing it, the radar, like a lot of companies put the radome and the exhaust before you put the fuselage halves together, but obviously for painting and stuff like that and like building it's not easy. So I've done it in a way so you put this radome after, and then these exhausts go on after as well. They slot in quite nicely. So yeah, it's just one of those things when you're building kits on a regular basis, you want to do it. You try and make it as easy as possible.
Fantastic. Cool. Very, very good. Any more questions before we sort of wrap up?
I've been looking at the classic airframes one as you were doing your presentation. Anyone want to buy classic airframes, Gannet?
Yeah, going cheap. Get rid of it quick. Offload it.
No, there's hardly any surface. They got panel lines, but there's no other surface detail on it at all.
One thing you guys might not, when you notice it, if you run your fingers on it, when you get the shots and stuff like that, I've done like a combination of raised and recessed rivets and stuff like that. So you will notice some like they're quite fine and stuff like that. But I have done a combination of raised and recessed. You'll be surprised how many like rivets are on this fuselage and the entire kit. There's quite a lot.
Do you know how the wings fit on? How you've done it so they're inset?
Yeah.
These have done it the opposite way around. So the actual fuselage comes out slightly, so it sort of fits on. But I think yours will be a neater job.
The only ones who I know do it really well are Hong Kong models. They have their full scale stuff because they've got a little step out, but they've got that like really nice locking system. But that's only possible in those like big bomber films, the 30-second ones.
I wonder if the resin will fit inside the Airfix one.
That's one of the questions. Peter says, can you see 3D printed parts replacing smaller parts like weapons, cockpits, seats, landing gear and doors, exhaust nozzles, etc.?
Yeah, that stuff I can see.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Josh asks, I'd imagine you guys at Airfix do 3D modelling to plan the layout of new projects. What software do you mainly use?
We use Creo Parametric. So Creo. Creo. The reason why we use that, I'll get that, is because it's a really good combination of surface and solid modelling. So yeah, that's the software we use. It's quite an expensive software as well.
Normally these things.
Yeah, all of these softwares are quite expensive. SolidWorks, Fusion 360. Yeah.
I think that's roughly about it, everyone, unless anyone's got any others. Pretty good. No, I think we're all good. Cool. Right, okay then, guys, we'll call it right there. Massive thank you, Pranjit, for coming on and doing this again. We'll have to do it again soon with your next latest and greatest release that you tease us with and won't tell us. So, so just to recap, sorry, just saying, obviously, we got the Gannet coming out. Obviously, it's Pranjit's one. We've got the RF version of the Buccaneer. Again, your tooling. It's like your end of year quarter of all of your stuff coming out as well. So that would be nice. So you've got all of those. And obviously, there's a bit of a theme going on here with sort of 70s, 80s naval aviation. Can you see that continuing?
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, World War II and Cold War aircraft, that sort of era are good sellers.
Yeah. So, like Wessexes,
yeah. Yeah, that's a helicopter.
Like a Wessex. That's what I'm getting at. Now we're into helicopters again and everything. That's nice. I'm looking forward to me Wessex. So, yes, great. But no, thank you very much for coming on, mate. What I'll do is that presentation that's there, guys, Pranjit doesn't mind. I'll link it into the forum so people can have a look at their leisure and bits and pieces as well down on today's show notes and things like that as well. So, yes, good job. But no, thank you for taking the time out of your busy Sunday to come and spend it with us, we're mortals.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure coming on.
No, absolutely. We love having you on and it's absolutely great. But as I say, I'll speak for everybody who's watching and we'll be watching and everything else. Thank you for taking your time to come here and obviously discuss all these things and being open and honest as well. So fantastic. Good job.
Well, right. I'll see everyone in the audience who's watching at Telford as well. So
yes, and we will be there as well as mere minions. We'll be walking around. We haven't got a stand this year, so we're going to be punters. So we can heckle. Hey, when you're bringing out a Wessex. So, yes, good job. Right, final little run around, people. So don't forget, obviously, at the moment, last orders, please. Now get your last orders in for anything from the Flory Models store. So just pop along to florymodels.org and you can grab all your bits and pieces. 25% off absolutely everything down in here and some on certain bits and pieces as well. So we've got your merchandise, your t-shirts, aprons, polo shirts. We're out of mouse mats, unfortunately, but yeah, pigments and everything else like that. You can grab those there. We've got a last shout over on the PM Models UK.com store. 15% off absolutely everything in the store, plus the fact we've got our flash sale with 25% or greater. And obviously we've got some Airfix bits in there. So if you want to grab Pranjit's beautiful 48 scale Buccaneer, this is the S2. And obviously we've got the Valiant as well. We've got the lovely, gorgeous Mark 9C Spitfire, the big 24 scale one. And obviously the fantastic Javelin as well. They're great kits. Plus the fact, we sold out of that one. That one's all gone. But obviously
Andy,
we've got quick Andy, change it over.
I've just put it up.
Slave one that's now called Boba Fett Starship, that's available as well now, and also we've got the Zvezda bits and pieces. We've got the Frogfoot and the Hip as well, and we've got the lovely Jag as well, and obviously we've got the Apache and all your other bits. Don't forget you can add to your order as well with glues, thinners, paints, you name it. We've got it all in your tool section.
If you've got anything left.
If we've got anything left, because to be honest, we have been stripped out in here all weekend. We had a full restock before this, and it's all going. Yeah. So, but yeah, we've got all your stuff down in there as well. So if you want to grab anything, you can just grab some tools, bits and pieces, and so it goes on and on forever just down in there. So yes, good job. Well done, everybody. Massive thank you, obviously, to the entire Flory family, because without them, we wouldn't be here full stop. And for supporting us and everything else. If you do want to join the Flory family as well, you can subscribe as well, or just keep an eye out for us on social media and on YouTube and bits and pieces. And we'll be doing more live stuff in the next few weeks. In fact, the next time we'll be on doing something like this will be for the turkey shoot, which is back end of November. We've got a full weekend of pure building. So there you go, Pranjit. You can come on and just build.
I was about to say, Pranjit can come on and build one of his own.
You can just build for us if you want for a couple of shows.
Challenge.
You can put together a Gannet. So yes, but it'd be great to have you on for that one if you want to pop in, mate. You're welcome anytime, just like that. Massive thank you as well to the team, obviously to Nathan for sorting out the quiz last night with Chris, obviously for Matt, who's now going to be a very busy man next week along with Andy. They're going to be going, and obviously John for joining along, and most of all you guys at home for watching, supporting, and keeping this great thing we call scale modelling going, and keeping it as popular as ever as well. So yes, good to have you all. Anybody else got anything to say before we go, gentlemen?
I just want to say thank you for all the orders this weekend. It's just been off the chart.
You won't be saying that after Tuesday. You're saying I'm buried in orders. Sod off.
Yes.
Help.
Yes. So we'll obviously from tomorrow be ploughing through, and obviously that's going to take a process because there is that many. So just bear with us, but everything will be out to you as soon as. And fantastic. And don't forget we've got the AK restock coming in the end of the week, but we'll mention that because we're back Thursday, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll be back Thursday night with you.
I've lost count of where we're actually at.
I have no idea. We'll all be on Thursday night. Why not? We'll all be here. So if you want to join us again on Thursday night for a building evening, things like that, we will be.
It will be chilled.
Obviously, we will be chilled because everyone will still be recovering from this. I can tell you. My voice is going and my bum's flatter than a flat thing on Thursday. Yeah. So yes, definitely. We'll see you all again soon. But no, thank you very much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. We will see you all again very soon. Wave goodbye, gentlemen. We're out of here.
Bye.
Bye.